you've got a quick glance at the photo, straight back down to your painting and make the mark.
Hi, Howard Jones here. Welcome back to part 3. If you haven't already watched parts 1 and 2, do take a look at them, as it'll help explain this next stage. If you're enjoying these short tutorials, do please remember to subscribe and also hit the like button. And of course, if you want early notifications of when these arrive on the YouTube channel, then just hit that, just click on that bell icon as well. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy this one, and I'll see you at the next one.
And we paint from memory, regardless of what people say. We paint from memory all the time, even when we are copying, even when we copy from a photo, we are actually painting from memory, because you have to take your eye off the photo for anything from 5 seconds to half a minute to pick up what it was you've studied from the photo, and then take your eye off the photo and deliver what your memory can provide you with. So we are effectively always painting from memory, even when we are using photo reference. I'm using a rigger brush here, just once again to indicate a little bit more detail. I'm looking at the photo. There seems to be the odd slightly darker recess up there between those little dormer windows and things. And I think this is why the speed is important for certain things, is because the memory is going to serve you better if you do it quickly, because the longer you leave it from looking at your reference, your photo, to actually making that mark, the further it gets away in terms of memory. So notice there's an archway there too on the side of that. Something going on here. I think I'll leave that. I'm myself now thinking you've taken that far enough. Let's move across the road over to here. I'm using the same brush, the rigger brush, and I'm sticking with this sort of burnt sienna, cerulean blue, sometimes ultramarine blue mix. And I'm just going to pop in some of these winter trees. Now, what doesn't happen in the photo is there's not a tree. This is another effect, I think, that the camera tricks us with. I think if we were stood there, we'd be aware of trees that closer to us here, out of this shot, and they would go out of the painting. They would go, whereas the trees in our photo all are retained with, they're a long way off the edge of your format. They're a long way off the top of your paper. So I'm going to suggest that we can see slightly more to the left, and therefore those trees will be taking us out of the edge of the paper. That's always good. There's something static about containing all your elements within the confines of the edge of your paper. It really is like saying to your viewer, this isn't real. This is all stuck on a piece of paper. Whereas if you imply that this tree goes out over here because it's bigger and it's closer, that gives the viewer a far greater sense of realism, actually. So moving further down here, try and couple these things together by crossing branches. So I'm not necessarily looking at individual trees. I think that's really important. Don't start looking at these shapes as individual trees. It's the odd one that's a bit taller than the others, yes, but really you're just connecting them all. My little rigger brush is just dancing over the surface. It literally does a dance. And it does seem as though there's a tree here further down the road in front. I've got to be a bit careful with that because the limbs might look a little bit too heavy. think what I'll do for this one down here is turn the little rigger brush on its side and do that. I think I'll do that for some of the others. You know, there's often a bit of last season's foliage still clinging to the trees. It's very easy and you know, simple way, nice way to indicate bulky foliage. It's just to do the stuff off the side of the brush. The brush is on its side. Whoops, the brush is on its side like that, and I'm just angling it enough to get the paint out of it. Okay, I suppose we need to get a little bit of darkness back in between some of these concrete shapes. These because I want it to continue to look like there's trees growing behind here, I'm sticking with the rigger brush because, you know, it might be a temptation here to use you could use a small round brush like the one we were using a moment ago on the windows and things. You could use that to do what I'm doing now. But I sort of like the idea that this rigger brush gives us a sense of busy branches and things like that without getting busy. So there seems to be a shadow line under the capstones of these. Whoops. So yeah, there seems to be a sort of line running, something like that down there. Break that line up with a tissue. I've got to be careful with the line at the base of the wall because it'll probably be obscured. That line will be obscured by the snow. Right, okay. Now I'm studying again, making sure I'm okay with if there's any lines that we can use in the building like this. They'll be just, you know, lintels. And if this were to get a little bit too busy, I'd probably just take a bit of a white wash, literally a sort of white glaze with gouache, and go over some of this building just to knock some of my busyness back out of it. Now then, I think an area over here where I've just been could be a little bit darker, a little bit bolder. So I'm mixing up this time ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. I'm doing away with the cerulean blue in this time because with using the ultramarine blue instead of the cerulean blue will give me a slightly darker mark, a darker shape. There it is there. That one there, burnt sienna, and that one there, which is ultramarine blue. That will always be a darker mix than if I put too much cerulean blue. The cerulean blue was very useful because I didn't want all of this stuff to be that dark, but just one area maybe slightly darker than the rest. And that is something that I pick up on from the photos. The photo, you know, I'm not, you've got to, if the photo's offering something that you know is going to work, do it, use it. Because I'm quite often picking up, particularly in the critiques, about how dark areas can look very flat unless you vary the tonal value and the temperature of that. Well, that's the same for any tonal area. That was potentially a mid-tone territory from there to there. Now, if it's all the same mid-tone, it won't look good. It will look flat, just like a really dark area could look flat. It's just making a dark shape is not enough. You've got to vary it. or just making a mid-tone shape as I'm doing now. You've got to vary it. Right, put out a bit more ultramarine blue. It's just getting there now. I think the strength of that dark is just getting there. Yeah, about there. I think we'll leave it at that. I'm just going to put in, I'm sticking with the rigger brush, and I'm mixing up the same two colors, but with much less water. So I'm not going down here where there's a watery puddle. I'm taking the paints straight from the edge of the palette where there's no water. Because, excuse me, I just want to do some slightly heavier line work for the suggestion of traffic lights, maybe. Traffic lights on opposite sides of the road. Again, strengthen that line a little bit in places, just to make it look a little more convincing. Quick glance at my photo. Seems to be some vertical shapes running down the wall in places. That's the post of the traffic light itself. Okay, let's start thinking about the snow. Let's start thinking about the ground and the figures. Now then. So I've got to put the warmth on this wall now. I'll use the big round brush. I'd probably ask you to avoid using the small round brush for this because you'll be there all day. So the bigger round brush, and I'm going to pick up some raw sienna. Raw sienna. And this is a very watery mix again. And what I'm doing with this, I'm hoping to convey this warm sunlight that's coming from the right-hand side. So it's very, very watery. That looks strong, but there's a lot of water in that. And not only does this hit the side of the porch there on the hotel, it seems to show up inside slightly too there. And it's dotted around in this area where it hits the building. But this is the side I wanted to show off. I'm going to go through those figures completely. Now, as this lovely warm color goes further down the road, it stops becoming a lovely warm color and just gets a little bit cooler. So I just pick up a tiny bit of blue in that yellow and cool it off. Now that's quite a hard edge over here that I've left a moment ago. So I'm rinsing my brush out and leaving it quite flat like a paddle. I'm just going to soften some of that warmth color. The reason why I left it there for a couple of seconds before I did that is because a thirsty brush will actually take it all back off the paper surface. Give it time to grab the paper. Give that little yellow color time to grab the paper before you start doing what I'm doing now, and that's just adjusting the edges, softening it. Right, now I think we should start looking at the snow. Sticking with this brush and with this color.
So we'll leave that one there for the moment, and in part 4 you'll see me invent this snow scene, and I hope you do take a look at it. It's worth watching because I'm not using a reference as such. It's just what's been sort of created from memory and the use of, I suppose, images that are in my head from previous snow scenes. So there was a time, of course, when I'd sort of studied photographs of snow in these situations. I've been out braving the elements on the odd occasion in snow scenes, and made my sketches, made notes, and so I'm able to create this scene. If you like these short clips, do please subscribe. Do please hit the like button. And if you want notifications, immediate notifications, do hit the bell icon. Hope you've enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you in part 4.